fine. It should be. Check your check your links, Andrew, just to make
Uh,
sure.
I can't because I don't have my second phone with me. I'm at an Airbnb right now, but it should be working because it worked last night. Because if I
Did you ever
log out
get
of
your
this, it'll kick me.
did you get your TikTok?
No, I still tried to do that and it won't work. I don't know. I'm gonna probably YouTube it tonight and see what I have to do if it's on there.
It's not showing me live on TikTok. I don't know why this thing is such a pain in the butt. Let me see. Let me ask them. Can you see me live on there? Sorry, Dr. Ramsland.
That's
Technology
okay.
is not my friend. And it's really bad too when you're a professor and everything revolves around technology. Okay, it's on TikTok. I mean, it's on Facebook. Oh, wait, it just showed me going live, so there must be a delay. Oh my gosh, just let me. It says I'm live anyhow. I don't know. All right. Oh, I am live. Okay. I don't know about what's it called though. Are you okay on YouTube?
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to click out because I don't want it to kick me. But last night it was working when we tested it.
Okay,
It
good.
says
All
it
right.
says live. It says live, and there's like a timer going. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's Fancy.
Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I've never used this before. All right. Hi, guys.
Well, us either, really. I don't know how to say, oh, okay. I don't know why it won't show everybody, but
I don't know.
this is
I've never used
weird.
this. I always use StreamYard. I've never tried this one, Restream. It's different. So,
It is, but it's the only one that goes to TikTok.
no, StreamYard can too. You just have to have a code. There's a special code you have to have that you get from TikTok to do it, but it doesn't work all the time.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to start it out. And I'm going to start with the fact that today we have a very special guest. She is a woman who, I don't know, man, like her work is like a deep dive into the human psyche and honestly, sometimes a human abyss on top of it. But Dr. Katherine Ramsland, she's a professor of forensic psychology and a prolific author too. And she's truly one of the most respected voices in the world of true crime and criminal behavior. And we will dig into all of that though. But first, I wanted to let you guys introduce yourselves and then we're going to turn it over to Dr. Ramsland.
Okay. Well, hey guys, I'm Fancy. You might know me as the leading expert in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case. I am the one who has broken that case wide open and proven that it is not the story that the public has been told. I've been working in true crime for about 8 years now. I've always had a passion for it. And I don't know if you remember it or not, Dr. Ramsland, but I interviewed you in 2021, 2022. It's up on our YouTube.
Okay. On what case?
I think we talked about a couple different things, but I do think we talked mostly about BTK at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I can't remember exactly all the things we talked about because we didn't talk about just one specific case. I think we were talking more forensic psychology and just concepts of it and onto different cases at the time.
So what case did you just blow open?
I've been working on the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case since 2017.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's who I am. So we're the Good Wives Network, and we had the Good Wives Guide to True Crime podcast, and that's where we interviewed you several years ago. It was a great interview, by the way.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it very much so. So it's good to see you again. That's who I am, though. So there you go.
There's Mac. She just came on.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Amy Mackey. It's nice to meet you. I've been following the Brian Kohlberger case since it began. I'm very intrigued by things that are being said and things that are not being said. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm doing plenty of the not being said part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's exactly what
I
she does.
mean, there's just so many things that are unanswered. There's just so many things that are. I mean, yeah. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I'm just not.
How do I change this format? Do you guys only see a straight line?
Mhm.
Because it's not showing everybody.
I see
I see 4 symbols, 5 symbols now.
5.
Why don't it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Well, it's just me. Well, I don't want a big box like that.
But that's better.
Is that better? Okay.
Yeah, it's okay like that.
I don't know why it's being like this, but now it doesn't have Andrew and Dr. Ramsland on there.
Yeah, it does.
I see me.
Oh, well, it's not showing on mine. That's weird. Okay. Well, I digress. Andrew, Jen.
Is this on YouTube?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. People are asking on TikTok.
It's on my Facebook. It's on my Facebook. It's on my TikTok. It's on my YouTube. It's on Andrew's YouTube. On Andrew's Facebook.
Will you add me on TikTok onto the thing?
Oh, yeah.
I am Jennifer Alexander. I am Two of a Crime. I advocate for a missing 19-year-old from Mobile who went missing 2012. And I do a little bit of everything.
Nice to meet you, Jen.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's true crime. Always interested. Always interested.
And I guess last but not least, I'm Andrew. I host Unforbidden Truth. I've done a few interviews now with Dr. Ramsland, and yeah, I interview professionals like herself, convicted murderers, survivors of violent crime, and professionals in the mental health and law enforcement field.
Good to meet you.
You too.
Actually, Andrew, I am the last, technically, because I didn't introduce myself.
Oh, that's true. My bad.
So I am. I would say I'm everyone's favorite professor, but now that you're on here, I might be up against some good competition. Although I did just win Instructor of the Year, so I will toot my own horn on that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was very. I put a lot of work in for that, but I am a. I'm just everybody's advocate. That's what I do.
Yep. Me too.
As
long as it's truth, I'm there.
I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Ramsland, I have a funny story for you, by the way.
Okay.
So Dennis Rader, BTK, his birthday is the day before mine.
Mhm.
And so I sent him a message, and I don't know who it was that he had quote unquote vet me, but he sent me a message, and I all I said was, happy birthday. And that I explained that it was my birthday, and also, and that's how I always remember it. And that, his crime was one that was interesting for me, because as it was unfolding, before he got like when he started playing cat and mouse with the police again, I was on bed rest with my daughter. And so I was glued to it. And anyhow, so he wrote me back, and he told me that he was blocking me because what he found about me was just absolutely horrible. And I was like, first of all, I didn't have my whole name on there, that he would even be able to look me up by to see the stuff that's like me. But I was like, I don't know who he's looking at or anything, but I thought, I'm getting passed judgment on by BTK. And I was like, I don't even know what to say about that. That's just rude.
Well, he does have a fair number of scammers and people trying to take advantage of him. So he does have screening processes.
Amy, add me on TikTok. So
It won't let me. If I go into TikTok, it kicks it off of here.
Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. So
I just can't see anything. Like I can't respond to anybody in the chat or anything. I don't know how this works. It's just not. I can't even talk to the people that are in the chat so that I could, because I would help out on YouTube.
Is it not?
No, I see the chat over here on the side, like I can see it, but I have no way to respond to it whatsoever. None.
Weird.
I it is like, yeah, it's just, this is so weird. It's a very strange platform. I never, yeah. Sorry.
I will go on my phone and go in under my other account. And
I mean, I'll pull it. I can pull up YouTube on this side, and I can do it with a side by side. That's not a problem. But I just was letting you know there's no way to respond to anybody in the chat or anything over here for us. I don't know if you have the ability to, but we don't. I don't.
Well, we can see the messages.
Yeah, I can see the messages, but I can't respond in any way, shape, or form. Yeah,
I'm okay though. I don't mind.
That's fine. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to know why we're not responding to your comments or anything, that's why.
That's why. Yeah.
We literally cannot do so.
yeah,
But why can't we address them as part of the, I mean, if somebody asks me a question and I can see it, why can't we address it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Ramsland, it was in 2020, and it was during the CrimeCon house arrest period of time that I interviewed you, and we did talk about BTK. I just looked it up on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really good interview. I do remember that. So anyway.
I remember you telling me about that one.
Yeah, it was very insightful.
It meant a lot to you. I remember.
It did. It was a very good interview.
I actually had somebody ask some questions earlier, and I thought about it. And one of them I felt like we all could probably have some input on too, because one of the questions that I was asked was, said, can you ask her if she ever found herself liking any of them as people and had to remind herself who they were?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like that.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Well, do you want to have context for this case, just in case your listeners aren't familiar with it?
Sure.
Sure.
You want me to give it?
Yes, please. Well, I feel like, I mean, I would be more than happy to, but
The floor
I
is
feel like
yours.
it would sound so much better coming from you.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, Dennis Rader was a serial killer in Wichita, Kansas from 1974 until 1991, killing 10 people. His first incident involved a family of 4. And after that, he killed individual women. He basically got away with it for 30 years. He stopped in 91 and then resurfaced in 2004 because an attorney was going to write a book about the case, the unsolved case, and he didn't have all the information. So Rader did not like the fact that somebody was going to be writing his story. So he began to play what he called a cat and mouse game with the media and the police to sort of taunt them, have some fun, thinking he was going to continue to get away with it. In the meantime, he was planning an 11th murder, which he was thwarted at and then arrested in 2005. So he was from 1974 to 2005, he was free for 31 years. And now he's in a prison with life sentences in El Dorado, Kansas.
Yes, his first case was the one that always really bugged me, and I think it's the children aspect that I could never get past.
Yeah, he came close to killing Shirley Bayen's 3 children also. Instead, he locked them into a bathroom, but he thought about killing them, especially the little girl. And he did have fantasies about mother-daughter assaults, and he had multiple drawings of young girls in bondage and with their throats slit and things like that. So he obviously thought about that a lot. He, as a teenager, he used to imagine girl traps because it was his way of keeping girls under control, because otherwise they made him feel off balance and insecure, and he didn't like that. So from a young age, he really thought about girls being under his control.
Oh, wow.
What was his relationship like with his own mother?
He didn't really like his mother, he said. I mean, you know, of course, being raised in the Midwest, he's respectful, etc., religious. But she had humiliated him on a number of occasions, which again, you know, leaves him out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's caused by a woman. Same with some of his female.
Seems like a
sisters.
common thread.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a common thread. And so he didn't have a great relationship with her, but he took care of her as she was aging, and, you know, the dutiful son. He was president of his church congregation. He was married, had 2 kids, educated, had a steady job. So, you know, none of the things you expect from some of the formulas that we've come to.
Very well spoken. All the above. He was able to hide that very well. Very well.
Do you have an idea as to what you think caused this with him? Like, is there something specific that happened that's why this happened to him? Or,
well, I mean, it's hard to take a whole book and give it to you in a nutshell.
Yeah, I understand.
You know, people's developmental trajectories are complicated.
Right.
With multiple factors, and the kinds of things he was exposed to at various ages, and the way he processed that information, you know, kinds of braids together to gave him a fantasy life as a teenager that involved True Detective magazines that had a lot of, you know, salacious images of bound women, you know, who looked utterly frightened. And these are the kinds of things that he envisioned for himself and wanted. And then he also really wanted to be significant, to be famous. And he saw serial killers getting that kind of fame in the 1970s because the headlines were usually much, much more impressive in the 70s and 80s for serial killers than they are these days.
Sure.
So he saw that, you know, you put that together with his bondage fantasies and his need to dominate women. And then when an opportunity presented itself, which happened shortly after he had been fired from a job he really liked, you know, all of it came together in just the wrong way for the Otero family.
So you're saying that he actively chose to become a serial killer,
Definitely.
not just it's something that happened and he was doing it because he had
a need. He patterned himself. He had role models. He patterned these role models.
That's very different, isn't it?
That's one of the reasons I worked with him, is because he was unusual in that way. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to really understand how that happened, because he, in no way was he typical.
Wow. Yeah, see, I didn't know that part. That's something I didn't know. And that's very interesting to me, because, you know, we normally look at serial killers as, yes, they have control over what they're doing. Yes, they know what they're doing. But it's some underlying thing that, you know, they can't necessarily stop. But he's seeming more of a conscious decision. And that's very interesting comparatively.
And he had long gaps.
Yeah.
You know, 1974, he had the Otero family, and then Catherine Bright, and then 3 years went by. Had two more, spaced a few months apart, and then I think 6 years went by. I mean, he could stop, and he did stop on a number of occasions. The next one was 1985, then 1986, and 1991, and then nothing until 2004 when he planned another one.
Right.
Wow. Did he ever say?
Now you do have people today claiming that there are a lot of victims he hasn't copped to, and that they're out there trying to match him to unsolved murders. But so far, nobody has produced any evidence.
So you don't believe? Do you believe that? Do you believe there's more, or do you think?
I don't believe there's anywhere near what people are making claims about.
Yeah. Sure.
I wouldn't surprise me if there was 1 or 2 more. He keeps saying there isn't. 10 is it? Why wouldn't he confess to others if there were others? And I agree with that. Why wouldn't he? He loves the fame. And and at this time, there are no consequences because he has immunity for making any more confessions. So why wouldn't he confess?
Why wouldn't he at this point? Yeah. I think it's a game for him. That's
It is.
yeah.
Has he ever
Man, I
mentioned
wish you could
why
have
he
met Otto.
stopped?
He got busy. He had 2 kids, and he had a job. When he first started, he was going to the university, so he had ways to be away from his wife, and he had excuses. He'd be at the library or doing stuff. And when he had a more routine life, he didn't have those kinds of excuses. When he stopped, he had one job where he could be out of town. So it was just a matter of changing circumstances in his life. And also, I think the fantasies didn't have the same impact a bit later in his life.
Do you think he thinks about at all how this impacted his daughter or any of that?
Sure, all the time.
I know somebody who talks to him regularly, and the way that I hear like about the interactions that he has with his daughter, because when all this stuff was going on with the recent like searches and stuff like that, he was still allowing her to come in, and people, I kept getting told, well, people are telling him like, she's just, doing this to work with police. And he's like, he knows, but there's like that soft spot there that exists for her.
He definitely knew she was trying to trap him. It was for her own, books and productions. He knew that, and yet he just would say, she's my daughter. And that's important to him. His whole family was important to him. He would say, they're off limits. We're not analyzing them. And that's fine, because I wasn't trying to do a book that included other people. It was an autobiography, a guided autobiography. I wanted his perspective. And I do know his daughter. We've encountered each other from time to time. I suggested she write a book, which she did, in part because as a reaction to the one I wrote with him. So I think he has mixed feelings about it. I don't think her feelings are mixed. I think she definitely has.
Yeah, I've seen her. I've seen her.
She's quite angry about him, and so
we have a question.
I don't want to talk about her. I'm
right.
The work I did with him.
Absolutely.
We have a question. Do serial killers ever have remorse or empathy?
So we have more than 5,000 serial killers documented. It's very hard to make generalizations. It's not a criminal type. It's a description of a behavior. And so there's a great deal of variation in mindset and whatnot. I just actually wrote a blog, how many serial killers are psychopaths, because people have the wrong impression that they all are, because they're definitely not all psychopaths. And yes, they can experience remorse. Is it as deep as what normal people have? I don't, maybe it's deep in a very contained kind of way. But I can't judge anyone's remorse. They say they have remorse. They might cry. All I can do is believe them, right? Because I can't be inside their skin to know for sure. I think anytime you try to decide if somebody can feel this or that, you're, and I'm a former philosophy professor, so this is a philosophical discussion of how much can we really know of other people's emotional lives. And I don't think I want to make a statement about whether somebody who says they feel remorse really does.
Right. Wow.
We definitely know that there are serial killers who have turned themselves in.
Yeah.
We know that there are serial killers who have expressed remorse. We know that there are serial killers who have killed themselves. So you can read into that whatever you want.
I question the sanity part because for me, I can't wrap my head around it, right? And like for me, I would have to be in a state of mind where I was just absolutely insane.
Well, insanity is a legal term, and it just means that you have by virtue of a mental, you can't comprehend that what you're doing is wrong. And that
Right.
certainly isn't true of most serial killers.
Right,
And
because Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't, they
no,
didn't say he was insane,
no,
and he
because
knew
he
what he
knew
was
what he was
doing.
doing. He knew
Right,
it was wrong, and he knew there were consequences.
Well,
right,
Ed Kemper
right.
the same way. Ed Kemper did the same thing, and Kemper turned himself in because he didn't want to do it anymore, and he knew he couldn't stop on his own.
No,
You know?
no, I think I think he turned himself in because he had no resources. He didn't know what he was going to do, and
Mm-mm.
he realized once he was far enough away from home that where was he going to go?
What was he going to do? Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh my,
Go ahead. We have another question.
I feel like Dr. Ramsland needs to meet Mo, Andrew.
Yeah, Mo is you. She would hate Mo.
Oh, listen, I hate
Mo is
She
yeah,
needs to
he's
meet the twins. The
We
twins.
all hate Mo. Well, no, but Mo is interesting because we're talking about these exact like things, and he went and he stabs his wife over 40 times and then takes her head off and poses it and leaves and drives with the kids in the minivan or whatever to go turn himself in, and then he wants to claim he's battered spouse.
Oh wow.
Battered husband.
Don't forget words on TikTok.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's one
Oh, I've already decided I'm getting a restriction over there.
Okay. What's one psychological trait or behavior that people often overlook?
In what?
I guess in
Serial killers.
these people, yeah.
It's not possible to give a generic answer to that.
Okay.
Because each person is different, and whoever they're having an association or a relationship with is different. So most people who are related to or married to serial killers or mass murderers or any of these people will tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's partly because it's safer in their mind to believe that what they think they see couldn't possibly be true. And Dahmer's father himself wrote a book that is all about his denial and his inability to grasp the issues his son was having and what his son was becoming. And I think that is true of most human beings. They will not see their partners, their sons and daughters, their spouse, their parents, anyone that's that close. I don't think they're going to see. They're going to put the most benign spin on it.
Right, because no parent wants to
No.
believe that about their kid.
No, not at all.
Child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, somebody asked the question, did I come to like any of the people I've dealt with? And I will say that Elmer Wayne Henley, I always like talking to him. He calls a couple times a week. And he's very intelligent. And he was I wrote a book called The Serial Killer's Apprentice about him. And he was an accomplice to an adult predator. When he was 15 years old, he was pulled into this, being an accomplice to Dean Corll, who is a serial sadist who would use his accomplices, two of them, Wayne and David Brooks, to go collect boys up the streets, bring them to parties, and Corll would take his pick, bind them, torture them, rape them, and then kill them and have the accomplices bury them. And Wayne was involved in this for a year and a half. And so in the end, he's the only accomplice to have killed the predator to end it. And he did do that. And as a result, he went to prison for life. He's been in prison for 51 years.
Wow.
Wow.
So since he was age 17. He's smart. He's a reader. I approached him to to explore the accomplice relationship because it really is underexplored. And he wanted to do it only if it was a way to help kids today understand the dangers of adult predators and their manipulations and what they're looking for and what they do. So that's essentially what the book ended up becoming. And we worked on that for a couple of years, and that came out last year. And since then, he will just call and talk. He never had any kind of therapy in prison. He had, PTSD. He had violent nightmares. Really had no sense of anybody understanding that he was a kid pulled into something he couldn't really deal with, and he was meant to be a victim. David Brooks brought him to Coral to be one of these victims, but instead Coral decided to use him, and Coral leveraged him to the point where he didn't think he had any other choice but to do the things he was doing. So that's a very different kind of thing than Dennis Rader, who chooses to be a serial killer. And so I do like Wayne. I like talking to him. I feel terrible that his life, he's talented. He's a talented artist. I think his life has been wasted, obviously. And so it's an interesting story. And so I like talking to him, and I do have sympathy for him.
Somebody asked, I don't know if it necessarily has to be a serial killer, but is there anybody in general that you've spoken with that absolutely terrified you that you had to stop communications with?
That's a
No.
good question.
No.
What about, do serial killers often or not see themselves as evil?
Yeah, they don't. And Dennis Rader thinks he's a good guy who did some bad things. So does Keith Jesperson. He says it almost exactly the same way.
Wow.
They often say, in part because most of their life is not devoted to murdering somebody. Those are moments in their life. Even if it's a long, drawn out planning fantasy, it's still not the majority of their lived experience. So they tend to think most of the time they're not bad people. And you can understand how they might come to view themselves that way. I don't think I've ever seen one say, I'm a bad person who did some good things. Gacy thought he was essentially a good person who, had some lapses. Some serial killers think they're on a mission, like Ridgway thought he was helping the cops by murdering prostitutes. So it really depends on their mindset, their self-concept. I don't think essentially they view themselves as evil for the most part.
Which is so bizarre.
It is, and I saw that when we were talking with Otto, Amy. Like,
I was about to say Otto,
right? Because how he explained it was just so nonchalant. It was
yes,
it was just another Tuesday for
just
him,
so
right?
matter of fact.
Well, it's like
I just picked up the hammer and
made him do it. They essentially made him do it. Like, it's their fault. It's all their fault.
Otto Smith was one that we had on with us. He became kind of regular, and he started being more open about what it was that he was doing. And he died in February. Like, we're just in the midst of getting into like the stuff that he's willing to talk about. But he basically said, like, some of the people he would purposely set up, but he aimed for the people that were society's disposable people, like junkies and people that he knew that he could like give them money and know that they're going to steal from him.
If they deserved it.
Yes. Right? But he also had interesting wording. Like, he said he put them to sleep. And then when, he would bury them, he planted them. So he wasn't like, he had a difference between killing someone and murdering someone. There were two different things to him. And it was like his very first person, he didn't consider that, and he didn't see that as the same way. He saw it as self-defense. So that wasn't the same. So he had like these methods of like categorizing as well. And it was very interesting. But he did tell us, like, he told us dark things. Like, he told us that the moment that he enjoyed most was when he would look in their eyes and realize that they know what's about to happen. And he's like, that was the part that he loved the most about it. And that, he would be like, well, they shouldn't have underestimated me. It's like this superiority complex that's just wild.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's Rader too. He wanted to replicate an expression he had seen on the True Detective magazine of Harvey Glattman, a 1950s serial killer who would tell women he was going to put them on on these magazine covers. They were models, and he would bind them and then tell them he was going to kill them to get that terror, that look of terror that was authentic. And they did end up on the cover of these magazines because they were, they were victims.
Right.
And Rader would see that expression, and that's what he wanted to replicate in his victims.
That is just wild. Somebody asked, do you think that they can be rehabilitated, or
Depends
they
on who we're
just
talking about. I mean, like, I think Wayne Henley would easily be rehabilitated. He's full of remorse. He's horrified at what he did. I think he could easily live in society without any further issues. Dennis Rader wouldn't be, because he lives in his fantasy life. Now he's too old right now because he's in a wheelchair and he can't move around, so he wouldn't be a danger, but he'd still be certainly thinking about doing that. So it really depends on who you're talking about and what motivates them, and what circumstances they'd be in. So yeah, I think you can, but very few of them.
somebody asked about differences between male and female serial killers.
Again, we're generalizations. There are so many of each. I can't really tell you. I mean, people love formulas. They love to simplify it. The females are the poisoners. They're not, but they're not. They use other brutal tools as well. Some of them. So I can't put them in a group and make a side-by-side comparison, because each group has so many differences from one killer to another that I guess that's the curse of knowledge, is that I know so much about these people. I just cannot simplify them in that way.
Right. I have a question. Like, obviously they fantasize about doing it. And my question is, do you find, it could be another one where you can't really answer, but do you find that, the actual act of them doing it, does it meet the fantasy level? Does it exceed it? Does it not even reach it?
It depends on the person, and they don't all fantasize. They're not all motivated sexually. There's many different
Right.
motivations.
And I didn't mean just sexually. It could be just
But
fantasizing
if you're
about doing that. Yeah.
if you're a greed motivated serial killer, you're not necessarily fantasizing about it. You're just looking for an opportunity to
Gotcha.
con someone and enrich yourself.
Right.
So they're not all based in fantasy. And then they don't all want necessarily to kill, but do it to eliminate witnesses, because they did something that they wanted to do to the person. That's something that Rader would say. He wanted to bind them. He wanted to terrify them. Now he's got to kill them because they've seen him. So it wasn't the death that was the big rush. It was the dominance and the binding.
Everything prior.
But then some of them, like the guy you described, do want it. It is the death. It's that power over them, that sense of being a god. Bundy would talk about
like Ted, yes.
So for him, it was the death. And so you would have to look at each of their motivations and what it was that they were particularly getting out of the act of murder, or not. Because Dean Corll, it wasn't the killing of them. He wanted to abuse them. He wanted to rape them. He wanted to, sometimes he'd keep them for days. But then you just strangle them or shoot them and get rid of the bodies, because they were now witnesses.
I can see how that would happen. I just wouldn't have it in me. You know what I'm saying? I just
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody is.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it too.
I'm not sure what I would do. I'm not sure what I would do if you would just said the opposite.
Yeah, it's good.
Somebody asked, what was the driving force of you going into like forensics and serial killers, specifically?
I started out as a teen. When I was 13, there was a serial killer in my town, and my brother's friends found the first body. And in fact, I'm writing my memoir right now. Many years later, I ended up talking to him. He was caught and convicted. He was a college student who was an elementary ed major, and he killed, allegedly, because they only tried him on one, he allegedly killed 7 or 8 other co-eds.
Wow.
And years later, before I even got into forensics, I started a communication with him. I've been communicating with him for like 27 years. And so that started it. It was not what I aspired to do. I was a philosophy professor before I got into forensics. Never did I aspire to be an expert on serial killers, but I had writing opportunities presented to me that allowed me to completely immerse in the criminal mind, essentially. And little by little, you build your reputation, you build your expertise on exposure to the cases, to the people. As I got opportunities to actually talk with them, go to prisons and things, that just added more to it. So it wasn't like I decided this is what I wanted to do. Things came my way and I moved into them, essentially.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I can tell you that looking back on mine, I think it had to do with, I mean, Fancy and I were the same age. It was like the era of Adam Walsh and how
Yeah.
that affected, like, our parents couldn't like let us go look at the shoes while they, looked at towels or whatever. We had to now hold hands and stay with each other and
Right.
be right up on each other and stuff. And all of that really changed. And then we see, America's Most Wanted and, Unsolved Mysteries. And then like the first real like true crime thing that I remember is I remember watching the news when Ted Bundy was executed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
And
Yeah.
that was like the first like major thing that I watched that stood out. And from that point forward, I was just like, I'm going to learn about this Ted Bundy.
Yeah, I was
And
in
then I
Chicago
became
when
obsessed.
Gacy was executed. I was in Chicago at that time. It was, yeah.
Is there a particular, I mean, of course, Dennis Rader has to be one of your pet cases that you love. Or I don't know if love's the right word. I always feel weird using that, but is there another one that is like particularly near and dear, like you have a really strong draw to it?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah, I know the words are.
I've done a lot with Jack the Ripper. I've done a lot with, like, Israel Keys was an interesting one to me because he was fairly unique.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just asked in the comments about your thoughts on Israel
Yeah.
Keys.
Yeah.
Actually, I just finished the 4th novel in my crime fiction series uses the Israel Keys case quite extensively. That's coming out in August if anyone's interested. But I found it really interesting. I thought it was mishandled. It would have been very easy to find out if he had these other victims and who they were. All they had to do is lie to him and say, yes, we can get you executed in a year. And he would have turned over the stuff to them. But stupidly, they told him they couldn't make a deal with him. I just thought it was handled badly. And I think, then he killed himself. So spoiler, his story is now over. And so, but it was such an unusual one in that it wasn't about, victim type or anything like that. He was raised in an extremely unusual way, with this kind of very primitive family, crowded conditions, very primitive conditions. And he developed as a boy this kind of very callous disregard and decided he wanted to be like Bundy without making Bundy's mistakes. But ironically, he made Bundy's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. But the fact that he would go plant these murder kits, randomly, and then wait a year, maybe 2 years, to return to it and just pick off people. I thought that was so unusual that it would have been really interesting to have studied him in depth, but we didn't get that opportunity because he killed himself.
That's too bad.
But we do know a lot about him. You know, there's a good book, American Predator. It's a very good book on his family background, and with some suppositions about people who could have been his victims. Will we ever know? Will we ever definitively link him? I don't know. I mean, some of his murder kits have been found, but that doesn't necessarily link him to a victim.
Did you ever talk to him?
No, the FBI had him. Nobody was able to talk to him. But there, you know, you can see all the interrogations on YouTube. It's an open case. It's out there. You can watch. You can study his behavior. You can, you know, learn a lot about him, just the way he talked, the way he acted. Whenever he talked about a murder, how he was, the way he treated some of his victims. There's plenty of behavioral information on him. I wouldn't have had to talk to him to see all that, but you know, once they had him, nobody was getting access to him except the investigators, and then he killed himself. So, you know, that's the end of that.
Do you have any inside info on how many bodies he might possibly have had?
Well, he said there were 8. You know, he had the 3 that they knew, the barista in Alaska and the 2 in Burlington, Vermont, because those were in his computer. And he admitted to those. But then he said there were 8 more, and he left these garish, you know, little faces drawn in blood in his cell that suggest there are 8 more. Maybe there are more than 8. Who knows? But they have some ideas based on his travel patterns. You know, he sort of zigzag around the country. Sometimes they went into Canada. They have a few ideas, but I think actually linking him to those will be difficult without him being able to say anything about it. Because he did it so randomly. It wasn't like he had any any association with the victim. And that's pretty important to be able to make that link. Just to say, well, they crossed his path, and so he just, you know, he killed them. But even like in the Burlington case, the interesting part was he had picked a person, but it was raining, and so he wasn't able to do what he expected to do. So he actually entered a home that he had scoped out to bring the 2 people out and take them to an abandoned house where he would then he bound them and did his thing with them. But that wasn't the plan. The plan had been to simply randomly kill a person that he had his eye on, but he was thwarted in the process. So, you know, we know a lot about him. There just wasn't any opportunity to take it deeper. And I don't know that he would have cooperated with anybody either, because he really didn't like the idea of being famous. He wasn't into that at all. The only reason he talked at all is because they had him dead to rights on 3 of the victims, and he had a daughter. He wanted to protect her, so they had some leverage with him. And but I don't know that he would have done the kind of thing that I do. I work with killers who want to work on themselves, who want to think about it, who want to, you know, really delve in and go through the process with me. I don't see him as that person.
So I'm curious. They mentioned rehabilitation earlier. Do you know who Thomas Kokorellis is?
Yeah.
What do you think about him? Do you think he should still be in prison? He got out like, I think 30, 40 years early or something like that.
Well, he was an accomplice. So that was, and I think, wasn't he low IQ?
Yeah, they said, I think that was part of his defense, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was.
Yeah, so he was leveraged. I don't think they believed he really had the ability to form intent very clearly, that he was going along, he was being used, he was being manipulated by a predator. He wasn't a predator. So, you know, the whole idea of rehabilitation applied to someone like that, that's not who we're thinking about when we're thinking about predators. yes, he did these things as part of this weird little Ripper crew, but left on his own, would he have ever done any of that? Probably not. And that's the question you always ask when you have more than one offender operating together. Which of these people would have on their own done this stuff? So, we know that I think at least two of the ones from the Ripper crew would have, but not all of
Right.
them. So I
Yeah.
think
Well,
that's a factor. And I think, he went through all kinds of evaluations and, trying to figure out how, if it would be okay to release him. And I believe he's been fine.
okay. Yeah, I've always been curious because he's the only one I don't know anything about. I used to talk to Ed, and I know Andy was executed, and
Mhm.
I forget the Robin Gecht. I interviewed him at one
Yeah,
point too. He claimed he was innocent, especially even the crime he was in prison for, because he's not in for murder. He's in for
right,
attempted murder and
right,
rape, I believe, or something like that. And
right.
he
I
did a
mean,
lot of victim
I
blaming.
think he was clever. He used these guys to do the things he wanted to do.
Right, right. Yeah, he blames them all. He said that they all did it, and he's innocent, and they brought him down, and blah blah blah, and like
Yep.
there's no way you're
But
innocent.
but truly, he's the predator,
Right.
right? So he's the driving force of it. Um, so when you look at someone like Corcoralis, he was a follower and one with not the intellectual means to really understand what he was doing. We talked about insanity. That is one of the things we look at IQ, and below a certain threshold, that person is not considered able to understand that what they did was wrong because they can't process the information intellectually. And I think he understood that it was wrong, but I don't think he really was able to extricate himself from the group.
Um, Dr. Ramsland, quick question, totally off topic, but yet not. So if we did a book club, would you like answer questions sometimes
What book are you
on
going
your
to
book?
read?
The new
All of them,
Oh, you
apparently.
mean one of my books?
all of them, yes.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do a lot of book clubs.
We would love that.
All right. That's the one thing that they were just talking about it in the chat. They were like, we should start a book club, read all of our books.
Well, and
That was
each of the novels, even though they're fiction, are based on true cases, on actual cases. And the main character, Annie Hunter, is a forensic psychologist who's also a suicidologist. So she's based on me and the things that I've done. So it's very easy for me to talk about the actual cases behind those books. You wouldn't know necessarily what they are without me telling you, but all of them have real cases involved.
I'm down. I have a question for you that I know others probably won't even begin to care about, but I care about it. But the question is, how do you balance like your academic side of your work with this investigative collaboration type work? Because I feel like I'm kind of in that same like space.
Yeah, me too.
And
Me too. I'm trying to
I
find
need
a
to
balance
balance it.
myself. Yeah, I can't balance this myself either. It's become way too crazy.
Well, I guess anybody who's ever been on my Facebook page probably would know the answer to that.
I have, but I mean,
If you see the horse every single day,
yes,
I spend a fair amount of time in a barn with horses. So
Yeah.
I know.
that gives
My
me a
phone
very
gives me
good
these.
sense of balance for my life.
See,
And then balancing between the different types of projects I do. I just keep them all in separate piles and decide what I'm going to work on any given day.
it's finals week, and I have so much grading to do.
Yeah,
So.
I'm retired.
Oh, that's right. Well, how
Yeah.
did you do it?
How did I do it? Well, I think because I was teaching the same stuff I was researching, so it all came together. I mean,
It all
if
came
I'm talking to
together.
Raider, I'm bringing that into the classroom.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know at one of my graduate classes, I had Wayne Henley call in, so they got a chance to talk to him.
I'm going
So,
to do that
so
when I
that
do
for me
criminal law in the
is,
fall.
that's how it balances, is whatever I'm doing in the research side becomes part of the teaching side.
Okay.
So that's
I
it.
only teach criminal law once every like 3 semesters. So
Oh, so
maybe I'll,
I was teaching every class is forensic.
yeah,
And that's because
I'm
I
going to,
got a
okay.
great opportunity at DeSales University to create the forensic psychology track there, and then also
That's so
create
cool.
the criminal justice master's program. So I created my own classes and I taught them for 24 years. And I still teach part-time in the graduate program, behavioral criminology and forensic psychology, but I created those classes specifically so that I could use my research in those classes.
So what you're saying is I'm doing everything all wrong and I need to back up and punt at the next semester.
You need to look for opportunities to create the life you want.
That's what's going to happen. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody keeps asking, you're not on TikTok, are you?
I'm not.
She's not on TikTok,
The
guys.
reason I'm not is because they keep threatening to take it away. I don't want to build a whole thing and then have it wiped away. So I want to see what happens with it. But I'm on Instagram and a Substack and Facebook, and I'm on plenty of social media. And I try not to let that dominate my life because I like to write and do other things. But anybody can come on my Facebook page. I have several. I have Instagram. Again, my horse will be will be front and center there. I do a lot on Substack. I do a lot of writing on serial killers, and on my Psychology Today blog, and all of that's free. So it's easy to access if you want to.
I love the connection that you're making with horses. That just, it's very therapeutic to
It
me.
is very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And I wrote Sunny's book too. So.
Oh, nice.
You want to write my book for me then? Because I've got about 4 of them I'm working on right now, and I could really use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 4 going to.
Yeah, I have 4. We have 4 right now.
Yeah. And I've always been able to do that my entire life.
Yeah, me too. I'm able to juggle it pretty well as far as that goes. But yeah,
it's just winding it up.
We've got 4
it's
books that we're trying to get done. It's like crazy.
It's when to know when it's enough. You know what I mean? You got to call it at some point. That's the hard part.
Yes.
So Andrew.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about Joshua Rudiger, as I recall, right?
Yeah, I was curious what you knew about him, because one time you said that his mother was a prostitute, and I'm like, I didn't even know that. I've been trying to do a deep dive on him. I need to get LexisNexis or something, because I can't find much on his case.
That was the psychologist who did the evaluation on him.
Oh, okay, because he's always told me his mom is a samurai or something like that, and his dad's like yeah, he's severely mentally ill.
Wow.
In your interview with him, he thinks his parents were wealthy and they just cut him off. That was not
right.
good.
Oh my god.
Right. Yeah, he's the most severe mentally ill person I've ever spoke to in my life. Very delusional. Yeah.
Well, I've talked to Gypsy Rose and her family, so delusion is something I specialize in.
We're very familiar with it.
We're very familiar with delusion. Oh
my word.
Yeah, I'm curious. Did his mom do any type of drugs or anything when he was pregnant? Because he's really out there. Like, I feel like he's mentally ill and DD.
He was subjected to a great deal of abuse, moving around, lack of attachment, and I think she did do drugs. And she neglected him. I think at one time when he was an infant, he was found after she left him alone for 3 days. He was found in the filth in her tub. He went through several foster homes. He went through multiple psychiatric institutions. This is a guy who had absolutely nothing going for him. Absolutely nothing.
Just never feeling wanted, I bet.
Right. Yeah. I've always felt bad for him, because he's never talked about it. He said his childhood was great. He lived here and there, but I know he doesn't know what went on. Like and I've been working with mentally disabled adults for 15 years.
Horrific. His childhood was awful.
Wow.
So you can understand that his delusions are a way for him to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He
Right.
was abused in prison too. From what another prisoner told me, they would use and abuse him, like take his commissary and
Yeah.
make him do things he didn't want to do. And he's even told me before, like, I really don't like doing that, but I have to do it. So he knows, he's aware of that he's doing that, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That goes back to like Arthur Shawcross.
That's sad.
He had that same kind of terrible upbringing, sexually abused by his mom and his aunt, and
Wow.
when he's 7 years old.
Well, maybe. I know a lot about that case. He was led to say some of these things by defense people. And
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, those hypnosis sessions were bogus. So I'm not sure that's true.
I mean, I have a question for you,
Yeah,
Dr. Ramsland. Something that we're dealing with a lot is the fact that there seems to not be truth in journalism anymore, in true crime. Like we've been dealing with this with the case that we're dealing with the Gypsy Rose case, and I'm just wondering, have you seen that over the time period, like it get worse as far as how these stories are portrayed in the media versus what the actual reality of the truth, the situation is?
Yeah, and that's part of my memoir is I've been part of this true crime community for 25 years, so I've seen a lot of changes, and I can tell you, as soon as they monetized clicks,
yep,
it was over for truth.
The media
no, I
runs the
truly
narrative.
understand. No, I
mean,
agree
look,
with you.
look what's,
runs
I'm
the
not going to
narrative.
talk about Koberger, but look what just happened with
Right.
me, with a guy who put an article out there with allegations
Yeah.
that
Yep.
weren't based in nothing.
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah, I
getting
mean,
all
that's
kinds
exactly
of
what I'm
talking
he's
about.
getting all kinds of podcasters interviewing him. He's going to be on Dateline. He's going to, you know,
Yep.
all of
Yep.
that translates into money.
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought
The
too.
old mighty
That's
dollar.
And that's what we've noticed. And I'm really interested in putting truth back in true crime stories. Like,
Good luck.
you know, it's hard. It's very
Right.
hard.
It's hard because if it's not exciting and it doesn't draw a big audience, people are not going to listen to you if somebody
you're
else has an alternate
going
that
against
is
stream
more
media.
exciting.
Right. Well, and I'm going up against, you know, with the Gypsy Rose story, what I'm going up against is the fact that the narrative has been so skewed by her and her family that is what everybody has bought into, and everyone has just accepted it. And it is not the truth by any means necessary, by any means at all. And for the life of me,
Even
I
if
cannot
paying
figure
attention.
out why the media just refuses to finally report this in the real truth. Like, I think if somebody would finally come forward and be like, look, we got it all wrong. We were totally wrong. It's not a case of Munchausen by proxy. It's absolutely this, you know, I think they would flourish, but they will not come off of this story. And it is boggling to me, like just completely mind boggling.
Right.
So
The media is basically they've diagnosed a dead woman.
Yeah,
A dead woman,
You know
and
what I'm saying?
they just continue
How
to
do
keep
you
on
do
with
that?
this when there's no truth.
emotion leads the way always,
Absolutely.
Always.
and it
Yeah.
shouldn't. That's
100%.
where things go
Right,
wrong.
and it shouldn't. You're exactly right. Yep, that's
And
it
this
right there.
is
And
why
it
our
shouldn't.
book is going to be so important, fans.
I know.
um
That's part of what our
So-
book is about. Our book, one of the parts of our book, yes, we're telling the story of what we're doing with, but we're actually calling out the media and showing how they were complicit in telling the story, and how they not only were they complicit, but they perpetuated the narrative. And so that's part of what we're doing with our book is calling
We've
out
done our
how
homework.
how media has done this with so many different. It's not just this case; it's many cases.
No.
You know, yeah. So that's what we're doing.
So
They're doing it with the
I
one
have
we can't talk. Doing it with that.
all right, I have some questions for you. One is, do you have a website where people can buy books from you, or should they get it from Amazon? What's the best?
Amazon. I have a website for the crime fiction series, but you can't buy books there. You have to go to Amazon.
Okay.
Or Barnes and Noble, or
Cool.
any of the online vendors. Doesn't have to be Amazon, but you can learn more about the novels on the website because it's devoted pretty much just to the novels.
Okay.
You just KatherineRamsland.net.
.net.
.net.
Okay. Somebody asked, how did you keep, like, for all the like people that you've spoken to, like Dennis Rader and stuff like that? How did you protect yourself from being manipulated by them? You know, like, or like from the things they would say or do or try.
Well, that's
need
a
to know that.
process, and you know, I worked with him for 5 years on the book, so you have perspective when you have that. I also had the police reports. I had multiple letters he had written to other people. I had the DA's stash of things because she was a friend of mine. I had multiple different ways into him, so you get more objectivity that way. But you know what? It didn't matter to me because the manipulation is behavior, and that's part of my evaluation of him. Like we played chess, and watching what he did and how he reacted to things was just as important. If he cheated, that's all right because that's behavior. If he tried to manipulate me, which he did, that's
Right.
behavior. That's what mattered. I'm not there as I'm not interrogating him where I need him to give me the truth. I'm looking at all the layers.
Right.
Okay. Somebody asked, over the years, have you seen a change in the type of serial killer?
Not really, because there's so many different motivation possibilities.
Is it true? Is it true nowadays they use guns more than any type of weapon?
No,
Oh, okay.
because if they prefer like Rader tried using a knife on one victim, he decided he didn't like it, so he stuck with strangling them because
Well,
that
I'm
was.
talking like 2025, like modern day serial killers that are being
No,
arrested
because we've
nowadays.
had
Because
plenty of killers in the past who use guns. You just don't know about them because they're not mediagenic.
right,
Yeah,
right.
again, over 5,000 have been documented. Unfortunately, the media focuses on a dozen over and over and over and over. And
Yeah, I
nobody,
talked to over like 30 of them, and nobody knows who they are. Like, wow, he killed 5 people. He killed 7 people. I've never heard of him. Like,
right.
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so
Stop
there's a
talking about me.
difference between serial killer scholarship and what the media shows you. People who are in this field as scholars are looking at a lot of different factors, and know that you can't generalize about them because there are so many different developmental trajectories and motivational spectrums. So I personally would rather just talk about a case than to talk about general ideas about serial killers
Hmm.
because it's not a criminal type.
Yeah, I agree
It's not.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody else asked, and I know we're talking about generalities and stuff, but have you found that there is an actual like common trait that seems to exist among them, or at least maybe around the different types of
The
groups?
thing that binds all serial killers as a group is that they have killed at least two people on at least two occasions. That's it.
So we're not looking for they
You
hate their
can put
mother, they
them
love
into
their mother.
subcategories like healthcare
Wow.
serial killers or sexually sadistic serial killers or mission-based serial. You can subgroup them, but it's so pointless to say what is the one thing that sets them apart. The only thing that is that they have killed at least two people on at least two occasions. That's the
Wow.
definition.
Right. So if you see a child necessarily being mean, hurting, even, killing animals, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be
Nope,
a serial killer.
not at all.
Although you do hear, though, a lot of that being said.
Well, the whole idea of the McDonald triad, there's no research support for it at all. That's the fire setting, animal cruelty, and bedwetting. There's no
Hmm.
research support for that.
Exactly. Yep.
The
Bedwetting is another
FBI
one.
stuff that came out of that in the 1980s was a
Hmm.
tiny group of like 25 people, white
Wow.
incarcerated serial killers. So they don't represent, the
The whole of
population.
everything. Yeah.
And
I'm
there
so
was,
glad you straightened that out because I
yeah.
know I'm not the only one who thought
What
that.
you're looking for are children at risk for adult psychopathy. And that would be callous, unemotional responses to things, to cruelty toward other kids or toward animals, to indifference when somebody is in a, having a hard time. So you're really talking about psychopathic children, not potential serial killers.
Right.
It's a big difference.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can get what you're saying there. Yeah.
So when I was in law school, and I've talked about this before, I had a kid that was on my he was on my caseload, and I was his guardian ad litem.
Mhm.
And this kid was 13 years old, and he frightened me. And I've never in my life ever had something like that kind of an experience. But at 13 years old, he had already tried to kill 3 adults. He had already had the animal abuse. He raped his 9-year-old sister. He sexually assaulted a 2-year-old, and he sexually assaulted 2 boys that were under the age of 10. And it was like I was looking into the eyes of this kid that was just absolutely evil. And everything I would see was just awful. And that's the only experience that I've ever had where it was just like, this is too much. Like, his family was extremely out there as well. And I feel like that's somebody that you're talking about, like those kinds of kids, that's going to be one.
Maybe, because it depends on how he got that way. If he's got the brain mechanism of a psychopath, so he's a born psychopath, that's one thing. If he's made that way through adverse circumstances, then he's reachable. And I knew of a case of a girl who was like that, who threatened to kill her brother, threatened to kill everybody in the family, was absolutely callous and horrible. And she ended up growing up to become a therapist.
I think I know
it
you're
really
talking
depends
about.
on the case. I would never want to make a prediction on somebody else.
And that's encouraging, to be honest. That's encouraging to anybody out there who may have somebody that they're worrying about,
And that's why it's important that we're studying people like Dennis Rader to understand the early exposures and triggers.
Yeah,
it's important.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing.
And I think that's one of the things with the addition of TikTok and all the different social media platforms. I think that's one of the things that Mac and I've been talking about is this concept of these people that are not true crime people necessarily. They're drama people. They watch drama channels and they love the drama, and that's what they're there for. And so they've permeated into our true crime community through the social medias, and they are the people that are causing, all this chaos and just absolute stain on the industry in itself. And it's so frustrating because we're already dealing with so much of trying to get truth out of people who aren't truthful, right? Because these are convicts, these are murderers, these are, people that don't want to be truthful. So it's very hard. And I've noticed this drama and this amount of seriousness being fleeting from the true crime community. And it's very upsetting for me that we've become this, and that this is where we're at.
And we're trying to reel it back in.
And it's just, yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we're trying to reel this back in and put it back into, thought process of truth. And it's just very, the internet has really, or even just social media really has
things
really,
that are really important, like this panel right here.
Yeah.
I love I've learned so many things in just the short time we've been talking right now. Like, that's what I like. I like the education part of it. I like learning about it. I want to know the brain, different. It's just, it amazes me. It does. It amazes me.
Have you considered teaching true crime for social media 101?
Nope.
I mean, I feel like it's much needed.
I'm sure she's probably thinking her teaching days are over.
That's kind of what we're doing. That's kind of what we're doing. What Mac and I are doing. It's kind of what we're trying to do.
I go on podcasts like this. I say what I can say in response to, questions and audiences. I write my books, and
We appreciate you,
and I
Dr.
go
Judy.
be with my horse.
Yeah. Somebody
I totally understand.
somebody asked if there's any truth to the in general to the head trauma stuff about this being a common
That
trait.
was early studies from the 70s and 80s. Yes, there is some truth to head trauma in certain places, creating behaviors where people have trouble inhibiting aggression, but it's not true that that is something all serial killers have in common, because not even close. They don't.
Right.
And people with head
But
trauma, by the way, aren't necessarily violent. So it really depends on what kind of damage, how the person processes their situation, what kind of support system they have in place.
Sure.
There's a lot of factors involved.
Yeah. No, you know what? Support is a huge thing. That's actually one of the things I tend to always ask is, what's your support like? What was it like before?
Right.
What's it like now?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody asked if you have any thoughts, or have you spoken with Gary Ridgway or is this the butcher baker, Robert Hansen?
Hansen is dead, I believe.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to talk to him?
No, but the problem with any of them that have made deals is it's hard to get them to talk, because if they say something that violates their deal,
Mm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like, let's
Makes
say
sense.
Gary Ridgway, and I think he's had a stroke as well. Let's say Gary Ridgway has agreed to tell the police everything, and he's admitted to 49 murders. And now I get him talking, and suddenly there's a couple more. All now he could be executed. Right? So what's
Right.
his incentive to tell me anything new?
Right.
That's the problem. So, and I know Hansen did a deal as well. So when I consider the in-depth kind of thing that I do, there's a lot of factors that come into that, and someone who's got a deal in place, that's not a good match for me.
Well, I live in Washington State. Our state abolished the death penalty. I'm curious if you've ever asked Ridgway if he has any more murders, because there's nothing else they can do to him other than give him more life sentences,
I know, but I
That-
think he's had a stroke, hasn't he? I think.
yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that he's not doing too well.
Right. I mean, there's only, each of these things takes years.
Right.
So
Right.
I've
Right.
picked the ones that I thought were the most productive to do. And he's not one
Wow.
that I consider to be highly productive.
Okay, well
He's
now
not,
I gotta ask the
by the
question.
way,
How do
he
you
doesn't have high IQ either.
How do you decide that?
Yeah,
How do you
that's what I wanna
decide?
know.
There's a lot of factors, but they have to be articulate, and he's not very articulate. They have to be articulate. And also, I know somebody who did do in-depth interviews with him, Mary Ellen O'Toole. She did a lot with him already. But I'm looking for people who are basically honest. Like, there's some who I know are just going to lie from the get-go. So there's no point in that, or they have something they want. If they expect that I'm going to pay them or give them any kind of commissary benefits, it's off. I'm not going to do any of that. They have to want to be part of the study, and they have to want to put time into it, and maybe read some things that are going to be difficult for them to make their way through. They have to want to be in it for the long run. And you're not going to find a lot of people like that. And they have to have a uniqueness to them, like Rada did and like Henry did. So
there's got to be something for people to sink into. Otherwise, there's not.
And it's about my time too. I mean, I want to maximize what I can do with these studies, because they are they're involved, they're expensive, and they take a lot out of me. So I'm not just going to go talk with someone like Gary Ridgway, whom I already know won't have a lot to contribute. Because I'm not here to find out, did you murder more people? I'm trying to find, plumb the depths of their psyche. And I just don't, I think he's pretty limited in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, I have to jump off, but I just
Hi,
wanted to thank
Fancy.
y'all for having me. And Dr. Ramsland, I could talk with you for hours, man. I love listening to you and picking your brain. You've got such an amazing handle on all of this. It's really I
Thank
enjoy
you.
listening to you a lot. Yeah, very much so. And we'd love to have you on again. So I will reach out to you again because you're such a wealth of information and like tonight, learning about the serial killer, the frontal lobe thing. I really thought that was a big deal, the frontal lobe part. And for you to sit here and say, no, we've really kind of moved past that. I didn't know that.
Me either.
That's interesting. That's very interesting to me. So, but thank you for your time, guys, and have a good
All right,
night.
see you,
I will.
Fancy.
See you, Fancy.
Bye, guys.
So, Dr. Ramsden,
Um,
before we wrap up, I was curious if you've ever worked with Dr. Stone before he passed away, like
Yes,
working with him interview wise or analyzing any of his
I did. Yeah,
interviews.
he was a friend. He's a good friend. He wrote a foreword to one of my books, The Mind of a Murderer. We would get together and when he did this stuff with Tommy Lynn Sells, he had a number of letters we went through. He gave me some advice about the Rader case as I was going along. So I knew him pretty well. I know Gary Bricata very well too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna have Gary on soon. He's just always busy. He's always like, tell Catherine I said hi next time you talk to her.
Speaking of Raider, what do you think about him chiming in on other cases? Because I know he has opinions about Koberger, but what about like even
He doesn't have
List?
any opinions on Koberger. He responds to the news. He sees the
well, okay,
news,
yeah, there you go.
then he talks, but he's not educated at all on the Koberger case. He's
He
interested in
seems to have,
the Gilgo Beach case
yeah, that
because
one.
he sees a lot of parallels. They're both arrested when they're, I guess, 59 and had wife and two kids, and so he sees some parallels there. That case fascinates him, but he doesn't. At this point, he's not talking a lot. He spends about 15 to 20 minutes on the phone because he's all bent over from scoliosis. He's not in. He still sounds strong. His voice isn't weak, but he can only talk for so long anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He's not helping anybody with any cases, if that's what you're asking. He's not
No,
Hannibal
no, no. I
Lecter.
didn't figure he would be, but I think it's funny because I was wondering, is he like does he love the media attention, basically?
He likes if it's on him. He doesn't particularly, he's curious about what he calls minotaurs. That's other serial killers. He's curious about them, but once the parallels seem to, like I said to him, when you really get down to it, there aren't that many parallels between you and Hoyerman, because Hoyerman was basically, allegedly taking out sex workers. And that's not like somebody going into the homes of middle class people. And he kind of lost interest after that, because they really didn't have the same motivation. But he watches. I mean, he likes to talk about it. I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but he likes any media attention to him, but he also just likes paying attention to the news. We talk about politics. We talk about, farming reports, because that's a big deal to him in Kansas. We talk about the moon phases and etc. Birds.
He liked growing tomatoes, I heard.
He likes the farming reports. He likes the whole idea of farming, and he likes the stock market. He likes to think about making investments and whether he'd come out ahead. And he's always calculating.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to convince him one day that I'm not a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird that I feel like I'm having to convince the serial killer that I'm not a bad person.
I mean, did he tell you who was evaluating you? Or he does have
No, he
people
didn't.
who filter who do that. He
No,
went through a
but I
period of time where there were a number of scammers who were trying to get things from him, and then they were selling them, and he felt burned by that. So
Mm, gotcha.
I completely understand that. But no,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't tell me who. But I was told that he was writing a book with somebody out in like Nevada or something. That is probably the one that did it.
the woman who wrote the Dream book or whatever,
Yeah, something like that recently.
Ryder Lee Mitchell, she could be.
Mhm.
She does a lot of research for him.
I don't know, but I know Will and Seth both really well, so I know they wouldn't have said it.
Yes, I don't
He
know.
does.
Because
He fascinates me.
he asked me to evaluate people, and I'm not doing your detective work.
He's absolutely fascinating to me, and I don't know what it was other than I fell into, and I actually fell into it because of the Zodiac case.
Hmm.
Because the guy who runs ZodiacKiller.com had another website at the time. It was CatchBTK.com,
Hmm.
and that's how I learned about it. Was I got tired of the Zodiac stuff, and I went over to Catch BTK, and I was like, "What's this?" And then I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then
Mm-hmm.
he starts coming out
Mm-hmm.
of the woodworks and leaving his trinkets and stuff, and I was
Mm-hmm.
mesmerized.
So we should wrap this up. I'm getting tired.
Yes, it was
Yes,
an honor meeting you. I did learn quite a bit actually just with this short time we've spent together. I really truly have, and I really was, it really was an honor to be here with all of you.
thank you for coming.
It's
And
Mm-hmm.
good.
yes, thank
Appreciate
you,
you.
Dr. Ramsland. We're gonna set up that book club.
Yeah,
Okay, let
I
me
say
know.
let's
For
go.
sure.
Let's go.
The first book is Ice Cream Man. Ice Cream Man.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I like it.
And thanks, Amy, for hosting, and thanks, Andrew, for also being here. And
Yes, all of
it's
you.
great,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, I should
Yeah,
tell
thank you,
you.
Dr. Ramsland.
All right, I should tell you about the one novel. So when I was working with Henley, he
Mm-hmm.
actually helped me with accomplice stuff for the second novel in that series. So that's
Cool.
authentic. There's your serial killer stuff.
Okay.
That's
All right,
cool. Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
All right,
It's
everybody
All
have a
9:30
right,
good
thank you
where
so
day.
I am.
much. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.
All right.
All
Bye,
right, good
guys.
night.
I'm staying on for a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna take off because my phone's about dead, and I got to get my charger.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you
So
soon.
you're talking to me what?
Oh, I said I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Were you gonna say something?
Not to you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't
I
sure.
was gonna say it to the people listening.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, fine. Um, so I asked Kirby to message me. So she's on it already. She's gonna set up a Discord for us to have for a book club. And I own the domain truecrimeclub.com. So we can just like use that and point it to it. And that way it'll be easy for everybody to remember too. But we can read her books and get her back on and do all of that. And I hate Restream, by the way. So I'll be getting my money back on this. But so anyhow, I just somebody come over here and talk to me so I don't have to be here alone. And then we can talk about it. That way I know what I need to do. I have so many other people, guys. I am friends with so many authors that do that write true crime stuff and have such cool stuff. Yeah, shout out to Mama Clover. That's me. Thanks, Maggie. You'll come over, text me. I'll send you the link. Oh my gosh. I should just restart. I'm just going to restart. Okay, never mind. Here she is. Anybody else want it? I can have up to 10 at one time. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. No, well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of us that'll make videos for it and put it out. I love reading. I hate reading alone. Gianna stinks. I sent her the link too. She come? No. Maggie. I should have just restarted. I should just let you like click it though. I love you too, Gianna. There's Peachy. Hold on. Okay.
Hi.
Hey!
I
I
was
don't like
expecting
this.
StreamYard. This is neat.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I didn't have to download an app or anything, so that's cool. Just kind of.
I do like that, but this is the one thing that I like about this is that it will still go to TikTok, and it's the only one
Yeah.
that I found that does. But
Oh,
I
cool.
don't. I still don't. I don't like it. It has issues still.
Yeah.
I have no thoughts on Karen Reed.
I had to make sure I could turn my camera off.
Yes, you
Hey,
can.
Maggie.
Hi.
Hi. This was really good.
It was
You did,
good.
and you did great.
She's really brilliant. This is the second time we've had her on. See, people don't even realize how many cool people like y'all missed out on by not knowing me a lot sooner. We've had so many cool people.
I feel like you do know everybody. It's kind of crazy.
I know she does, right?
I feel
Mhm.
like between me and Andrew, we probably do.
Well, I think it was very
Amy,
informative and educational, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know everybody else did too.
I was just legit dying that you kept answering people on your burner, and I was like, nobody knows who that is, and she's freaking so many people out.
Yeah. I
I
didn't
was
even think
dying.
about it, but see, it wouldn't let me come in any other way, and I was like,
You're like, Kirby, text me.
oh, I thought she'd picked up on it by this point.
Nobody picked up on it.
Well, now you guys know. That's my burner. I don't care though.
Is that
It's
your
actually
mom's or that's your burner?
it was built for my son, because my son was going into lives,
Uh-huh.
and he was debating people on being a flat earther. Yeah. So I can't remember what his TikTok name is, but it's something the Glober.
Mm.
And so I created this one, and my mom was actually going to be the one. I was going to let her use it at first when she was like learning, but then she ended up making her own. And yeah, it just kind of sat there, and I was like, well, but
Yeah.
I had to make one because he couldn't handle the religious aspect of those conversations the way I could.
Yeah.
My son's sitting over there with like his Georgia Tech physics degree and aerospace degree, and loves he loves arguing with people about being flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine one of your kids liking to argue with people.
Oh my God, all of my
I'm
kids are so
kidding.
argumentative.
Not at all. Not
Oh,
at all.
I have one that's actually relatively quiet, but for the most part, they are all very highly argumentative people. They get that. It's not my DNA.
I don't know. It might be.
It's not my DNA.
It might be.
So book
I
club.
hate that I
Yes.
can't see the comments. So I'm trying
Yeah,
to
I
pull up
can't
TikTok
either.
so I can see them on my laptop.
Oh,
It's gonna
can
drive
you?
me
Wait.
crazy.
You know
I
what?
hope
I can just
can.
yeah.
restart.
Peachy, you can. I can see them. It just looks different. Like if you look next to that at the bottom in the middle, there's like a little box with lines in it.
Oh, okay.
That's where the comments are.
That's from TikTok?
I think so.
No, those are YouTube.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know how
Hold
to
on a
get the
second.
TikTok ones here.
I was just gonna look on my laptop and pull it up if I can remember my login on my laptop. That might be a problem. My password.
Wait, who does Gianna want to talk to? I can get some people for Gianna. I know she likes serial killers.
Oh, that is YouTube because I can see the little YouTube logo. Okay. I'm laughing at
This
how many of y'all are on both YouTube and TikTok.
I'm
Yeah.
amazing.
Come on.
Next time I'll have to like your kids. She loves to argue. Oh yeah, okay. They'll do it. Except you
Guess
can't
I'm gonna
argue
have
with
to
the
log
youngest
in.
one. The 11-year-old's the hardest one to argue with because he's very logical. Thank you. Thank you, silly goose. And Nene. So, any suggestions for who else we should have live? I haven't even thought about asking like true crime authors, the ones that do like the research and stuff.
Yeah.
Leave my check alone.
I can't remember my password.
Well, hell, can y'all see me? I can see you. I'm just gonna go restart over there.
Yeah, I can see you. Okay. It's whatever you want to do.
I'll do that.
Where are you restarting?
Okay.
I'll just restart over there.
All right. He's just gonna restart at TikTok.